I would like the vegan movement to campaign to make this diet more accessible to people from lower incomes and to take away the elitist slant.
Hey, I'm Angie.
And I'm Ryan.
And we're
Happy Healthy Vegan.
So I don't know if we're late to the game or not, but last month there was an episode of a show called This Morning with the topic, Are Militant Vegans Going Too Far?
And what really caught our eye, besides that great title, was that our fellow vegan activist, Earthling Ed, was there on national British television once again.
Yeah, we were lucky enough to share a stage with him at VegFest LA this year and found him to be just like so calm, cool, and collected and really well spoken. And I've got to say, even here on national television, he was the same old Ed.
And what's happening to animals, the fact that pigs are in gas chambers screaming right this very second, the fact that dairy cows are being forcibly impregnated and their babies are being taken away from them.
And poor Ed must have had a hard time keeping his composure when his fellow guest, Julie Bindel, said this.
I don't have a problem with killing animals for meat, but I think that as long as they've lived well and die humanely, if there's a possibility for that.
No, there's really not much possibility for that.
My issue is the way that a number of vegans, and I'm not suggesting that Ed is one of these, but a number of vegans will espouse this kind of sanctimonious dribble about how it's no more expensive, it's no more time consuming, it's as easy.
Wait a minute, is she calling out us?
What do you mean?
We talk about it being easy. Yeah, like affordable
and not time consuming.
Yeah,
that's
pretty much our show.
One take home from our show is how simple and easy it is to not eat dead animals.
Literally, I get messages from people every day that thank us for showing them the truth of those messages. And I mean, I'm mad right now, but I don't think in general any of our content really comes off as sanctimonious, particularly when we're talking about those topics.
Yeah, I mean, let's keep it real.
I think she sounds a bit sanctimonious.
Yeah, I mean, and we all know that there's government subsidies for meat, dairy, and other animal products, and that helps lower the price down artificially. However, when you get down to it still, like, can someone name to me less expensive foods and the basics, the foundations of a plant-based diet, your like legumes, your potatoes, bananas, grains. I mean, there's not cheaper foods out there, despite her false claim.
But we can't deny the fact that many vegans who are sanctimonious and who judge lower income, particularly women who are raising their children.
Wait a minute, who's judging women and mothers? She has not named one single example.
As you'll see, her whole speech here, her whole appearance on this show is just filled with fantasy. She's making stuff up. She's being very vague, very non-specific, very general.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from all of you vegan mothers in the comments down below. Do you see any truth in what she's saying? Because I personally have not experienced that.
That they are coming from a position of privilege and denying how difficult it is to have and to provide a balanced diet for your family.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, this concept of a balanced diet.
It always seems like a triggering.
It's a double speak for having dead animals and their secretions and eggs on your plates. Secondly, a place of privilege. Again, it goes back to her false assumption that vegan diets, plant-based diets, are needlessly expensive, more so than animal product diets.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if she's talking about people that are buying like fancy cheeses and fancy meats and all those types of things.
Fancy burgers.
Yeah.
Which you don't have to eat as a vegan. They're cool if you want them as a transition food, but if you are on a budget, definitely don't eat them.
Yeah, as you know, here on Happy Healthy Vegan, I mean, we will try those foods when they're given to us.
Yeah.
And we will occasionally buy them if we're out and about.
Occasionally.
But my cookbook doesn't include any of them.
It's whole food plants.
And my weekly shopping probably the worst offender in our weekly shopping would be almond milk, I guess.
Or bread.
People are constantly lectured by vegetarians and vegans.
Look at Ed's face.
Look at his eyebrows.
Ed's face is me right now.
Who seem to think that their lifestyle choice, and they do nothing else, they do no campaigning against the meat industry.
She's seriously saying this to Ed, Earthling Ed, right now?
Like she does any campaigning against the meat industry?
Well, she is campaigning right now against the vegans.
but just the very fact that they have this diet, becomes unbearable.
Okay, the only thing unbearable is her crappy argument. Who is this person anyway?
Yeah, her arguments are so horrible and flawed. I had to look her up, and it turns out she wrote an article entitled "Why I Hate Vegetarians." And no, she's not being funny. She's not being sarcastic. I mean, let me just read you the byline. It just shows you the slant she has. People should not be bullied into giving up meat by humorless, judgmental souls using spurious arguments.
Oh my God, she should talk about spurious arguments. And the queen of them right now.
Who's being sanctimonious and preachy here?
Seriously.
And who is being hateful?
Article.
Have you and I or Ed ever written an article why we hate meat eaters?
Great point. I never have.
Now, I had lots of death and rape threats. I still get emails to this day. I was called all the horrendous misogynistic names.
All her complaints here about the hate she's receiving has nothing to do with veganism. It has to do with internet trolls. In fact, as we have experienced, and same with Ed, we get the same kind of hate and trolling ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we just did a video about, trying vegan candy, and people were on there saying all kinds of misogynistic things about personal attacks, and I was not even we didn't even advocate veganism or anything in the video. All we did was eat candy that happened to be vegan, and I was getting, my ration of hate. I don't like it. I don't agree with it, but I don't equate it with anything that it's not, to be equated with. Here she's saying, I'm getting trolled.
It's
vegan's fault.
And because I advocate online and because I'm very vocal in my veganism, I get death threats from farmers, I get death threats from non-vegans who are just opposed to what it is that I'm doing. And so it's an issue that exists on both sides. And it's not an issue from a vegan perspective, it's just an issue from probably like a societal perspective.
Right.
Yeah, Ed knows.
I was called all the horrendous misogynistic names under the sun by some macho brocalists, as we call them, vegans. And we can see this in the way that some men are trying to pull others into veganism by showing that they can be big bodybuilders and that they can have massive muscles. It's just a kind of a swap for their usual kind of, meat eating and steak eating into now a macho veganism.
So, okay, this is where I just really thought the argument just really went haywire.
Got derailed here. She's conflating so many things together, and none of them have to do with veganism.
Yeah, I mean, okay, maybe it is true that she was trolled in some comments by militant bodybuilding vegans.
Maybe so.
My experience from meeting so many bodybuilders through Veg Fest, the athletes panels, we've had a lot of experience with that the past couple years. Those bros are all super cool, very chill, and their online presence is nothing but a blessing.
Yeah, very woke people, very positive, even expressing vulnerability, the complete opposite of this toxic masculinity. Notice how she doesn't know any. She, again, is being very general, very vague. She couldn't name you one vegan bodybuilder.
So eventually the show gets around to letting Ed speak again.
And he dropped some great fact bombs about animal agriculture and climate change.
And it was talking about how to avoid rising 2 degrees from a global warming temperature point of view. In the UK, we have a responsibility, therefore, to reduce our beef, pig and lamb consumption by 90% and our dairy consumption by 60%. These are statistics that are not coming from vegans.
But Ed, there's another issue to that. I mean, the fact that we now seem to be awash with avocados, you can't escape avocado, means that the Brazilian rainforest has suffered because of the overproduction.
I don't know where to start here, but this is just so zany, just so, again, she's making stuff up. And apparently, where this comes from is she was on an episode of This Morning early in this year where she talked about how the number of avocados vegans eat is destroying the rainforest.
No wonder she got trolled.
I mean, this anti-vegan couldn't be further from the truth. She is just plainly, completely 100% wrong. Animal agriculture is responsible for over 90% of the Amazon rainforest destruction. And the leading causes of rainforest destruction are livestock and feed crops. I mean, and these are fact-based. There's studies, there's papers put out by governments backing this up. She has absolutely nothing that vegans are destroying the rainforest by eating avocados. And furthermore, vegans aren't the primary consumers of avocados. We actually did a little bit of research on this earlier tonight.
Yeah. So I found a report, which is a consumer tracking study that has the great headline, A Look at Who is Eating Avocados, Information about Consumers, Drivers, and Demographics. So it turns out that the general population is eating avocados.
More avocados. Didn't say anywhere in this report that it's vegans. They break it down by all sorts of demographics like income, ethnicity, and nowhere do they have it as vegans are driving up the demand for avocados.
And the only particular demographic that's been singled out
It's vegans.
is Hispanics purchase avocados more often. In fact, Hispanics purchase avocados more frequently. 90% of Hispanic consumers versus 73% of the general population purchase avocados monthly. So there's some facts. It doesn't say vegans. It doesn't say that vegans are driving the market. It actually says that the biggest driver is the taste, that they taste good, the information being put out there that avocados are good for you, that they have nutritional benefits, and that's really it. It's just that people like avocados. It's not because more people are going vegan.
If you look at quinoa, the new trendy food of the white middle classes in this country and elsewhere in Western Europe, Peruvian people, for whom that was their staple, now find that it's tripled in price. So there is another way that we need to tackle this.
Once again, quinoa consumption in Western countries has nothing to do with vegans. I mean, you can be a vegan and never buy quinoa. We hardly ever buy quinoa. I can't remember the last time we've bought quinoa. We get it sent to us sometimes from I Heart Quinoa, but that's about it. And if you want to eat quinoa, that's cool, but it's not a vegan problem.
Okay, so once again, I wanted to do some research because why do I keep hearing this, quinoa argument? So I actually found a more recent article
from irishtimes.com, and we'll link to it in the show notes so you can read it yourselves.
Oh, yeah. So here, just this one quote is so great. The biggest mistake was to assume that quinoa was a staple as well as traditional food in Bolivia and Peru. So that's the biggest mistake. And that's what this lady said, that it was a traditional staple food in Peru.
That they are priced out of.
Yeah. But it says the impact was marginal given the small role it plays in the nutritional diet of both countries. So a researcher found that even in the quinoa growing region of Puno in Peru, the grain made up just 4% of the average household food spent. Too small for the foreign-driven price spike to impact household nutrition in a significant way.
And the real kicker in this article is that over the past decade, quinoa consumption and purchases have increased in Peru compared to 10 years ago.
Yeah, so to say that vegans are starving Peruvians and Bolivians out of their staple diet is just a bald-faced lie.
Vegans aren't doing it, and neither are just middle-class Western country people doing it either.
Yeah. And as another important aside, what's actually driving the interest in quinoa is it's three things. It's people striving for a gluten-free diet, and people looking into superfoods, and the third one is people wanting to eat a high-protein diet. So none of these things are intrinsically specific to veganism, and in fact, sometimes are actually quite the opposite.
Yeah. And we can keep on going responding to this anti-vegan, but I don't want this to be some kind of half-hour video.
No.
We just highlighted some of her most outrageous claims here, and I could see a few people of you might want to comment, like, how come we didn't show Ed and respond to him more? Like I said at the beginning, he did fine. He did a really good job of expressing vegan beliefs clearly, but unfortunately, this anti-vegan got more speaking time than he did, and her outrageous comments went unchallenged by Ed because he just didn't have enough time to respond point by point. It would take him half an hour to make such a video.
Yeah, that was the most disappointing thing about this, is that she was just allowed free reign, just go off on all these half-cocked things, whereas Ed backs up all of his statements with facts, and he's really ready, whereas she's just spouting the kind of popular opinion, the types of myths that you're trying to bust day in and day out.
And she's just making stuff up too, and she's never being challenged.
I've mentioned it before, but it really feels like these particular talking points are popping up more and more over the past year or two.
Lies.
And it feels like, from our viewpoint, it feels like there's some sort of major agenda being pushed. I don't know if they're all just reading the same crappy articles and respouting the facts.
It could be as simple as that.
Clearly no one is doing the research before they come on and make these important illogical statements.
Isn't that amazing? This anti-vegan feels completely confident going on national television with zero facts, zero research, and just making crap up or repeating misinformation that she heard elsewhere. So share your thoughts and comments down below. Let's keep it civil. Let's not be militant, toxic, and all that stuff that this anti-vegan accuses us of.
Name your favorite friendly vegan bodybuilder too.
Yeah, I know we left out a whole bunch here for sure. So yeah, I guess that's it. So until next time, remember guys, doesn't suck being vegan.
No.